Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Just Gaming Tingz Podcast. Here we are, y'all. Here we are. And we're bringing an all queer perspective on video games, gaming news, and all the nerdy stuff that gets us through all of these very challenging weeks of 2020. My name is Ruby. Over here we have Chilora. Hello.
Hi.
And over here we have Koga.
Hello.
Yes. Of course, we miss Jam and Spin, but they're here in our hearts. We hope that everybody gets to come together next week. But we'll be holding the fort for them. We love them. And here we are talking about all the gaming things. Our first story is being brought to you by the one and only Chalora.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great, you know?
Um, so our first story is a write-up from IGN about the PS5 launch day sales that will be online only.
Ooh.
Sony's next generation of console gaming officially begins next week when it releases the PlayStation 5, but unlike previous console launches, there won't be overnight camping to secure one of the gaming's devices. Sony has announced that in an effort to keep staff, gamers, and retailers safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, all day of launch sales will be conducted through online retailers. No PS5 units will be available in store for purchase on November 12th, but if you had previously pre ordered the PS5 for pickup, you'll still be able to grab your new console during the designated time that your retailer allotted to you. Sony noted that customers planning to do in store pickup on launch day should confirm those details with the retailer. They say, please don't plan on camping out or lining up at your local retailer on launch day in hopes of finding a PS5 console for purchase, said Schumann, Senior Director, CIE Content Communications, said in a PS blog update. Be safe, stay home, and place your order online. So, what do you guys think? And are you planning on getting any of the next gen consoles at release?
Ooh. I was actually that was actually something that I didn't really think about. Cause I've never been that kind of person to like camp outside in line for like really anything. So I completely forgot that that was a thing that people would potentially do. Um, so I'm glad that they're making some decisions in regards to like avoiding that, mainly for I guess for the safety of like the employees working at these retail stores. Because people will do whatever people will do, but you got to keep the employees safe above everything. And yeah, I'm kind of surprised that this is happening. I'm kind of more surprised at people's reactions at it because I've seen some folks being like, "Oh, this is gonna open room for more bots to get the consoles instead of actual fans. This is gonna be a mess," and especially trying to organize with the retailer like when you're actually gonna pick it up. And some people are afraid that like if for example if you ordered it from Amazon they just send it to your door, but if you pre-order it at like a game store then maybe you're not going to get it at like the release day, you know what I mean? Maybe you're going to have to pick it up the day after or a couple days after or whatever it might be. But it's also like, we're in a pandemic, so I feel like if you're not going to understand that, it's like if you can't wait a couple days to get your console, then it's like there's bigger issues going on in the world. So I don't know. Yeah, what do you think, Koga?
Um, I think, it's fine that they're doing online. I can understand why people are upset because they feel they might get a bunch of bots because that kind of was an issue. I'm not exactly sure the name of like the program or anything, but using that to where it would, I guess, constantly attempt to buy or whatnot. But like I said, right now we are, you know, in a pandemic, so no, it's not going to be the same as it always been to where you could hopefully walk into a store. And I don't know, like honestly, if you haven't got already gotten one, just might not be getting one for the remainder of the year. Might have to wait till next year. And I don't think it's that big of a deal because quite a few of the games that people want, except Demon Souls, but like Spider-Man Miles Morales, is going to be on PS4. I mean, you can either play that one or wait until the next generation. But I mean, just right now, it's just that's what has how it's gonna go for right now. I don't think I won't be getting one until at least maybe next year, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. What about you, Chalora? Are you planning on getting any of the new brand spanking new things coming next week?
I mean, I don't know. I think I'm already kind of swamped with stuff I want to try on my PC, and like I still haven't finished new games I have on my Switch, and I know that there are a lot of games coming out for Switch soon, like Bravely Default 2, for example. Um, so I don't think that I'll be buying the PS5 right away. And from track record in general, I think that um, just waiting a year for it to come out for the second edition console is pretty regular, just to get like the better version. Um, but I think for anyone who's like, I don't know, who's not going to get it necessarily on release day, it's just like, I don't know, patience is a virtue, virtue is a grace, grace is a little girl who wouldn't wash her face. So
What? I've never heard that. Wow. What poetry we have here. Not just
I mean, I
gaming
didn't make
things.
that up, but I stole it from a book.
I love that. I uh, I agree with y'all. Like, I'm definitely not getting any of the new stuff when it comes out, as it comes out. The one thing is the same with as Chalora. Like, the backlog is real. The wish list of games that I didn't play from the last few years of the generation that we're currently on is so big that I'm like, yeah, maybe for the next year and a half, I'm just gonna catch up with the things that I missed because one, they're probably gonna be cheaper, and two, because it's like I'm not necessarily in a rush. There's no game right now that is like, oh yeah, I totally need that new console to play it because. Like Koga said, most of them are going to be available in current generation consoles anyway. So, or even PC, especially with like Game Pass and everything. A lot of Xbox stuff isn't even Xbox exclusive anymore because you get to play them on PC regardless. Um, so yeah, I'm not in a rush. Unless they had like a game that I absolutely needed to. But for the near future, I could see myself getting a Series S. Because I've been contemplating between upgrading to a better computer for like long run kind of things, but at the same time I'm like, well, but maybe we never know how the next year is gonna go, so maybe for like short term situations I could just get a Series S and have that be kind of a Game Pass machine kind of thing so that I can play games that are new and they're not necessarily exclusive on Xbox, but they're going to be available for me to play on Game Pass, as a way for me to smoothly be able to play them on my streams. Because if people have been to my streams before, they know that if I play some of the newer games on my PC, they have to be on the lowest of settings, and even still, sometimes they chug a little bit, because it's hard streaming and playing a game from the same computer. So that's kind of what I considered, because if you look at a Series S, it's like $299 versus like 600 at least for a new desktop. Not even a good one, like not it wouldn't be a bad one, but it would be like a decent-ish one for like at least 600, and then you have to get like all the accessories, all like monitors and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, maybe I'll just get a Series S if I find myself needing an upgrade of some sort. But yeah, definitely not anytime soon. What would be a game though that would make it so that y'all would be like, oh shit, I have to absolutely get a PS5 or an Xbox Series S or X, like right now?
There really isn't one. I mean, I'm on PC and I have a pretty beast of a PC, So it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, there's one game that really makes me want to go spend $500 on a piece of hardware. But I mean, if you give me quite a few of them, then perhaps. But I don't know. Some new fighting games with amazing netcode, please.
For me, like, I think my husband's probably just gonna buy a PS5 anyway, and I'm just gonna hitchhike on that.
I love
But
that.
I do want the Ratchet and Clank. I want that cat game. Whatever that one was.
We always
Stranded
forget
or
the name of that one, but yeah, I
cat
remember that.
game. But there was a lot of stuff that I was excited for. But like, I don't know what it is, but the bigger, like, big name games like Final Fantasy and stuff just I don't know. I'm skeptical. So I love a lot of the things that I saw, but a lot of the bigger stuff I'm skeptical.
So the game apparently is called Stray. We
Thank
have
you,
our
Spin.
very own Spin Blend in the chat helping us
We have
out.
a researcher.
It's funny you said that because for me it would totally be like Final Fantasy 16 if they were like it's a launch date like title. I would be like, well, maybe I'll just save and get a PS5. But I totally understand your skepticism because we all know that the Final Fantasy games, even for fans like hardcore fans who enjoyed all of them, um, they've been declining in quality. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, the new one will be a good turn to like a better future for Final Fantasy, or else it might just be the Final Fantasy. Ha 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 ha. Oh my god, I'm a comedian, y'all. Um, Anyway, maybe we should get into more gaming things. There's actually a story from PC Gamer. Life is Strange studio Dontnod is currently producing 6 games, y'all. Can you believe? So, Dontnod Entertainment CEO Oscar Gilbert told GamesBeat the studio currently has 6 games in production. He explained the kind of games it's making might surprise people. He said, "We don't want to stick to the same thing every time. We innovate. We are reinventing ourselves in terms of quality, mechanics, and technology. Finding new ways of telling stories is really important." The interview also mentions that action RPGs and interactive fiction as genres, Dontnod is interested in those, in exploring those, and notes that the studio is well aware of the example set by Telltale Games, who stuck with an initially successful formula long after it stopped selling. So, to assist with the increased production, Dontnod is adding a new studio in Montreal with another 50 employees, which will bring its total staff to over 300. Y'all, do you think that they're biting more than they can chew? Because,
Yes.
like the good example that was mentioned, Telltale Games, they had a shit ton of licenses. They had a shit ton of games that they were like, we're working on this, on that, on this, on that. And then they were like, well, we're going bankrupt. So, yeah, do you wanna elaborate a little bit on that, Laura? Your thoughts and concerns.
I don't know. Sorry, I was moving my text box because
No, you're fine.
I just think, like, I don't know, it took them how long just to make their initial game and then to make a sequel, and now they want to make 6 more games, like, right off the bat. And all those things, like, I know that the Life is Strange Studios have really wanted to always go like very in depth, um, it being as inclusive as possible, which are all really great things. I just think, like, I don't know, take your content and concentrate it rather than split it out, because you're going to end up with 6 mediocre games instead of 6, or maybe like 2 really good games. Uh, and even if you increase your staff, like I don't know, like anytime I've seen companies explode with people, it reduces the uh like I don't know. I've seen it kind of like just reduce in quality as well. Like you kind of lose your um I don't know, like
Like
your
authenticity, like the people
yeah,
that
like
had the
your
original visions for the game are like
yeah,
kind of diluted because there's so many more people working on it that you have
yeah,
more cooks in the kitchen.
yeah, exactly. And then you get, I also don't think that um 50 more people is going to is gonna make 6 games instead of just the
Right.
one. Maybe, again, could make 1.5, maybe 2 games, maybe a phone game, like, I don't know, I just don't think, it's enough, and you're gonna get those crunch times again, which is, again, obviously not the best for games.
Yeah. I immediately thought of Tell Me Why when I read this because they were also responsible for that game. And the one
Mm.
thing that I've seen people, I think it's one of the biggest criticisms for it is that it was too short. Like for Life is Strange, for example, they had usually I think it was like 5 episodes for each season. So the fact that Tell Me Why only had 3 episodes, it felt like now looking at this, I'm like, well, they have other games that they're working on. They're like kind of rushing through it. You know what I mean? Like even though they did an amazing job with representation on Tell Me Why, to me personally, it did feel like they could have went into it a little bit more. Like some of the issues that I had with it was like there was a problem and then almost immediately there was a resolution to it. You know what I mean? And I feel like not that they could have dragged it out a little bit more, but realistically, if you're mad at someone, you're not going to be okay with them like after just one conversation. It should have been more of like a developing thing. Even like the big mystery of the game, I feel like they could have dragged it out a bit more. Maybe if they had a bigger cast of characters, it would have been more of a mystery. Because in my playthrough of it on stream, we could just like easily like towards the end we were like, well, I guess that could only be one person at this point. Like by we looked around the cast and we were like, well, I guess it can't be that or that or that person, so I guess it's this person, without of course getting into spoilers. But yeah, they have a new game coming out fairly soon as well. So when I saw that game was gonna come out, I was like, oh, that's why Tell Me Why was only 3 episodes. So I'm kind of with Chalora. I'm afraid that their games moving forward will be less like not substantial. Like they will be less juicy. They will just be kind of like, oh, I guess this was kind of rushed. Oh, I guess there's glitches there. Oh, I guess the narrative could have been more polished. And we don't want that. Dontnod, please. Yeah, what do you think, Koga?
With the both of you, that sounds like that's doing a little bit way too much at one time. I'd rather them focus on a game here and there and not like, all right, we have a list of them, because then it's like, how are you going to keep up the quality for all of that? And then if the quality isn't there, that's going to be an issue to me. Like I haven't played like Tell Me Why yet. Thank God you didn't spoil it. So I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
please
no.
don't.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, but like Life is Strange was definitely one that I really liked, and when that game was one that just really got me, to pay attention to them, and I will like that quality, or at least close to it, to every game. I mean, it'll depend, game to game and your taste, but I don't want to see it, it just go down the toilet because they want to release, a whole bunch of them. So we'll have to see how they go about it. It scares me a little bit. Please don't. Please don't hurt me.
Right?
Just take your time.
Yeah.
Like if you got that many games, then you don't need to do them all at one time. Not like that.
Yeah. Especially if they're gonna dabble into other genres, because they mentioned art action RPG, and I would definitely be interested in an action RPG. I'm just kind of concerned about how they would go about it because right now they're like the way that they've been operating, kind of the layout that they've been having is basically just like not really a point and click, but close to it, I guess. So I'm kind of concerned of like, okay, are, it's either like you could improve on that formula, and because that still would be better than what Telltale did. Like they just basically had a template and they just basically threw different licensed characters into it. While if you kind of worked on developing that even further and making it better every time, like you could see a dramatic difference between Life is Strange 1 and 2, and then tell me why, like visually and the way that the games play and all that stuff, like you can tell it's not just like copy and pasted and it's just like pretty much the same thing. So I'm kind of concerned about how they're going to go about other genres and how that may take away the focus from the team, because then you're like, that saying of like you try to do a lot of things but you're like not, you're a master of none, basically, right? And I'm kind of afraid that they're going to dabble into a lot of different things and they're going to be meh at everything, rather, or at least like decent at everything, rather than focusing on making like a handful of like really strong games throughout a span of like several years. With that being said, though, would y'all be interested in seeing the narrative heavy play style that they have mixed with other genres? Like they said, action RPG, or maybe like an action adventure or other genres. Would y'all be interested in that?
Oh yeah, for action RPG, I would love to see that. Personally, I would think that would be something I would really like for them to make, which is, and when it comes to that, an RPG, that's why I'm saying like, things like that's going to take time. So if they want to go into other genres, no, just take it a little bit slow. But that's definitely one I would like to go into, since RPGs usually is where I would like to go for like stories sometimes. But if they can manage to do that, I like to see that probably more than any other genre that I can think of.
Yeah. What about you, Chalora?
Yeah, I agree. It would be kind of cool to see the games in a different format, just because, like, personally, games like that, or like Until Dawn and stuff like that, like I'll watch it, but I don't want to play it. Like for me, it's like an interactive movie, and like I don't know, I would just rather watch a movie.
Yeah. Valid.
So for having a different genre or play style option is great, because you can you can actually do something in the game. No offense, and actually play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. I was gonna say a fighting game would be fierce. Cause like I really would love like a fighting game that is like very like narrative centered. Like a brand new IP, like very cool characters, and it's just like an original story. And obviously it would have to be something not super serious though, because obviously that would just, people would complain that like, oh, they're resorting to violence to resolve their issues. But I think it would be really fierce if they did something, because I feel like the trope of like, oh, we're in a tournament and we're gonna make money and yay, we have to win because we have family issues, or like like deep rooted rivalries. I think it would be really cool to see like a very silly but also like cohesive narrative with like a fighting game or something, or like a racing game. I feel like a racing game with a really good narrative would be also really cool. But yeah, speaking of all of these different games and legacies and stuff like that, we do have a story from Sega, right, Kogan?
Yes, we do. All right, so we have a write-up from SegaBits.com. So Sega has sold off a majority stake, 85.1% of their Sega Entertainment arcade business to Genda, which is a company created in 2018 by former president of Aeon Fantasy. Sega will continue to develop and manufacture arcade games, as the division is still 100% owned by the Sega Corporation and is separate from Sega Entertainment. Also, the arcades will keep the Sega branding as well. What do you all think of that? And while it is mostly a Japanese thing, as arcades are still, well, before COVID-19, we're still strong in Japan compared to, the rest of the world. Sega's arcade business has been a huge part of history since the start of arcades.
Yeah, I was actually telling them this before we started the podcast. Like, I didn't know that Sega had such a huge history with arcade in the arcade business. So yeah, it really wasn't very shocking to me that they're like selling it. I saw some of the commentary in the article of people being like, yeah, they're just anticipating that real estate is gonna be declining because of COVID and stuff like that, and they're just like, yeah, let's sell this. Let's not be responsible for hosting um like the games that we're making and also the machines that we're making. Just seems like there was a lot of cost involved in there, so they were like, yeah, let's just make the games, which is reminding me a lot of when they stopped developing hardware for like consoles, and they were just like, yeah, let's just focus on making the games because this is very expensive for us to continue doing that. But it is a shame though, because like arcade, because I always love that idea of like going to an arcade place and all that stuff. But unfortunately, with COVID and everything, things are changing quite dramatically. But yeah, what do you think, Jalora?
I mean, I think it just makes sense. We're evolving past a lot of stuff, similarly to how we used to have, cinemas. Well, we still have cinemas, but like eventually, I think people won't really want to go.
Right.
Similar with like radio, like people don't listen to the radio as much. We used to have radio shows, and now people would like listen to and like sit around to listen to, and now people watch TV or like podcasts and stuff like that. So um, I think it's just the evolution of what we are interested in and what people want to do. And of course, with COVID, it's not going to help at all.
Right.
So it just kind of killed it right there and then. Um, so I think it's just the natural next step, unfortunately, But arcades are really cool in terms of like, it's a different play set than you would maybe have at home. They automatically give you the controllers, whether that's DDR with like the dance pad or all sorts of other stuff, which are always really cool, but they're also incredibly expensive to make. And I don't know. I don't know if giving like $1 per play is really enough to keep that uh, worth making.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to arcades, like I said, in Japan, it's still ridiculously huge. Like, it's kind of crazy, but over here, not so much. It's just, especially now, we're at a point to where if you release a game in the arcade, you can get the exact same experience at home. While
Mhm.
back in the 90s, beforehand, it wasn't like that. You got something like, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and beforehand, you got a pretty GIMP version. I mean, even with like PlayStation and Sega Saturn and N64, you still did, but that's when it started to catch up a bit. And then when we got to like PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, it was about the same thing. Like it was kind of ridiculous to where Tekken 5 came out, and then for some reason, Namco released it 3 months later on PlayStation. About the same thing. So people didn't go to arcades to play it anymore because what was the point? But in Japan, for all the way up until COVID-19, it was still ridiculously huge. So it is sad to see that this is what's happening due to COVID-19. But I mean, unfortunately, it's just that's how it is as time goes on.
Yeah.
But at least they're still gonna have gonna keep making games. So it's not like they're completely done. It's just it's time to move on a little bit because I know they still want to focus a little bit more on console games, which I'm all for.
Right.
Can we get Hatsune Miku on PC, please? You keep putting on PlayStation, you put it on the Switch, but it's not on PC. Like they say that it was because the buttons was X, circle, triangle, and square. I'm looking at the Switch version, and it's A, B, X, and Y. Stop playing. Please give me it. I will buy it.
Yes, please. Hopefully it just means that the costs that would be placed on this, they're just refocusing as a company and preparing for the next year, because it's still very unexpected what's going to happen. Like, even in the music side of things, in the music industry, people are like, I don't know, like there's some artists who keep like delaying their concerts and being like, okay, it's gonna be okay by summer of 2021, and then they're like, maybe the fall of 2021. Meanwhile, there's some artists who are like, I'm not gonna schedule any tour until everything is like half decent and we can actually be confident in the dates. So with games, I feel like it's kind of like that. Like, the companies right now, especially now towards the end of the year, they're like, okay, let's figure out some strategies so that our 2021 goes as smoothly as possible so that we can account for any losses or anything of the sort. Even there was like a story, I didn't really write it down or anything, but there was like a Sega story as well, that in Japan they were trying to get like hundreds of their employees to retire like on their own. Like, they were trying to like get them to volunteer to retire either earlier or whatever it was. So I didn't dig into too much of that, but it seems like in the Japanese side of things, Sega is definitely like trying to cut their losses and being like, ooh, let's prepare for 2021, y'all. But yeah, hopefully that means there's going to be some good decisions gaming wise, because if there's less money, they're going to have to be very confident about where they invested. So hopefully we're going to get some good games out of it. But speaking of good games, y'all, last week we kind of teased it a little bit. And so this week we're going to get into a little bit of our current generation highlights, kind of as a quote unquote goodbye to current generation. Because now, if we're going to mention anything PS4 or anything that came out from 2013 up until 2020, now from next week on, we're going to say last gen. So as a good way to say kind of goodbye to this gen, we figured we would kind of put together some highlights that we had from the last few years, from our PS4 experiences, PC, anything. We figured we would include everything, because, like, you know, why would we just stick to a console or two when there's so many games that are happening out there in so many different platforms? Who wants to go first? Do we have a list?
I'll do it.
Yes.
I was about to unmute, but okay.
Oh.
The wonders of doing this on Discord. We're like, oh, do I unmute? Do I talk?
I couldn't see what it was.
Oh.
Yes, go for it.
I probably should have just like gone over to my stack of games and like looked at them, but I didn't. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I think there was a lot of games released virtually, which was great. If we're talking about like the previous gen.
Yeah.
Like PS4, right?
Yeah, anything really from like 2013 up until now. So anything that came out for PS4, Xbox One, which a lot of them ended up coming out on PC and all that. So we could kind of talk about all of those.
It's crazy how long ago that was.
Right?
Oh.
For real.
I don't know. Like, if I had to have a preference, I would still say that PS3 was better than PS4 and PS2 was still better than PS3. Just as in terms of like releases and enjoyability. Like, I don't know, PS4 had a lot of flashy stuff without a lot of purpose. I think that they normally do. Like, I am sure people use the functions that PS4 has or whatever, but I don't know. I put the games in and I play them. For me. So it's just like a lot of little squares that you go past and you're just like, get out of my way. Like, I just want to play my game. or where is that game? I can't find it.
Right. That
That
UI.
stuff.
Ugh.
I don't like their menu system. It's irritating. Um, but I don't know. I bought the PS4. We played Final Fantasy 15 and I hated it. And then I bought Dissidia and I hated it.
Oh.
Well,
I I played a lot of games and I didn't like most of them. I think, but I did like a lot of them, so that's good. I don't remember which ones I liked, but uh, I did like some of them. Uh,
Yes. I could get into some of the ones that I enjoyed if you want to try to like recall the ones that some of them that stood out to you.
I
Uh
mean, besides PS4, I still really miss um, the 3DS.
Aw.
I don't remember any 3DS games that I didn't like, or that I didn't like turn on the 3D function and was like, oh, that's neat, and then turned it off. Um, which I don't know. I always thought that was fun, like to play like a little bit of 3D just to be like, what did they do with this function for this game? And then it's like, okay, that was cute, and now I want to keep playing. Um, I don't know. I think it was so underrated for something so cute and fun.
I think gamers have, or at least they used to. I think now it's less of that, but gamers used to have this thing about like if a game is cute, like they would like undervalue that. They would be like, especially during that generation, like with PS3 and like that entire era. I remember games were very like gray and like edgy and very like that was like a whole thing with like Arkham Knight and all that. So I feel like a lot of games that were on Nintendo's side kind of got a little bit like, oh, they're still doing the cute thing. We're growing up over here, and it's like no, like cute games are also amazing. Just because they have a different art style doesn't mean that they're less than. Some of my favorite experiences on PS4, I actually thought I had more than the ones that I actually ended up having. I kind of noticed that like I got the PS4 in 2016 because Slim, that's when the Slim became cheaper because they released the Pro. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna get the Slim. I don't care. I don't have a 4K TV anyway, so I'm just gonna get the Slim for cheaper. And I noticed that like first of all, I accumulated a lot of games with PS Plus that I never got to. I have Uncharted 1 through 4, and I didn't get to any of them because I always am like, oh, I'll stream them one day. I'll stream them one day, and I ended up like for the last 4 years not getting into them. Um, just because there's a lot like on Steam, there's a lot on the Switch, there's a lot everywhere, so it's like everything just kind of ends up being in the background. But some of my favorite experiences on PS4 were right now actually Resident Evil 2 has been incredible. One of my highlights for sure. I love this game. It wasn't an exclusive. I feel like most of these weren't exclusives anyway. I loved What Remains of Edith Finch. That was an amazing one. Rise of the Tomb Raider. I tried playing it on PC, but like I said, my laptop struggles with sometimes certain games, especially while streaming. So I think they had a promotion for it or something. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get it on PS4. So I got it on there. Amazing. Life is Strange. Amazing. It's hard to think like you feel like the first Life is Strange was so long ago, but yeah, it happened within this like latest generation. So Life is Strange I really liked. Ratchet and Clank was really really good because I actually kind of didn't experience that on PS2. I had one of the Ratchet and Clank games on PS3, um, but I wasn't like I didn't really grow up with them. So to me, it was like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm missing out because I didn't play the original few games. And then they kind of had a reboot, and I was like, oh, Fierce, and it was really really good. The graphics were amazing, really adorable, and the gameplay was really really nice. And like you could tell that they had experience with like the previous games, and they were like, okay, let's refine this and let's find the best things about each thing and put it on here. um I liked Kingdom Hearts 3, But I will say for everything but the story. Gameplay wise, Kingdom Hearts 3 is my favorite. Graphics wise is my favorite. But story wise, it felt like, without getting too much into it, it felt like the narrative was all at the end of the game. So like as you were going through all of the Disney worlds, it felt like, oh, nothing really happened. Like, okay, we're just kind of another cliffhanger, getting closer and closer to the end, and then at the end you're like, oh, here's the story. But then it makes you be like, oh, I just did all these Disney worlds for nothing. So but it was a really good experience, like visually, and like the gameplay was incredible. One of my highlights for sure. Tekken 7 was also a good one for me. Like the graphics have been like better than ever, and it was really nice for me to get back into like some of the characters that I loved in like the earlier Tekkens, and being like, oh yay, like it's so different now, but I love it. Um, I loved Until Dawn and Detroit Become Human as well, because they were good examples of like good narrative games, and graphically they were up to par with like the generation at the time. And they were just really good examples of like, oh wow, this is like cool stuff that they had with the audio and some of the features. Until Dawn had a really annoying feature of like, don't move, and you had to like either put down your controller in time, or like you just couldn't like move at all, and it was really annoying because sometimes you were like, I don't think I moved at all, I think I maybe just naturally shook a little bit, or I was breathing or something. And but I kind of like when games kind of experiment with little things like that. But yeah, those were some of my highlights. I know there was a bit of like remasters and stuff like that, so I didn't really get into those, like with Kingdom Hearts, with Final Fantasies, and some of those I didn't really get into those. I will mention Final Fantasy 15 because not because it was my favorite at all, but because it was the reason I did get the console, and I really wasn't that disappointed in it. In some ways, I thought that they tried some really cool things, and it showed the potential for the series moving forward. But to me, they did fail in some aspect, in a lot of aspects actually. But to me, I felt excited because I was like, okay, this I see some things of in this game that if it was refined for future games, we could get better experiences. And it kind of feels like it's what happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake. They took the failures of Final Fantasy 15 and they kind of were like, okay, let's get closer to what people actually want, even though it's still not fully there. Yeah, so those were some of my faves. I have a huge wish list for not Final Fantasy, for PS4 games that I didn't get to. So people are going to be upset, I'm sure, that I didn't mention some of their faves like Spider-Man or God of War or The Last of Us and stuff like that. But y'all, time is a flat circle. You can only play so many games, and a lot of those were expensive. And listen, I'm going to have plenty of time to play them because I'm not going to get a PS5 anytime soon. So I'm just going to get them on sale through the next year, and I'll get to them. Don't worry about it. What about you, Koga? What are some of your like highlights for the current gen?
First one is easily for me, Killer Instinct. It was a launch title, believe it or not, for the Xbox One. Before that, Killer Instinct was pretty much gone since 1995. The series has always had a good soundtrack, and this one was no exception. Season 1 and 2 was done by Mick Gordon. Season 3 was done by Cell Dweller and Atlas Plug. But it wasn't just the soundtrack; it was just the game. A lot of things that a lot of people complain about in like fighting games today. This game did it. It had um, online was really good. It was easy to pick up but hard to master. It had an amazing tutorial that not only taught you how to play the game itself, I mean, like actually teach you like what verbiages mean and like that, but also just how to play fighting games in general. It was supported from 2013 to 2017, and it was pretty much just an Xbox Live arcade title originally, but it did so well that they just kept going with it until then, and it became honestly to me like the best fighting game of this generation. It's like it just does so many things right that I love in fighting games. and it can get pretty ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun to play. Another one would be Resident Evil 2 Remake, because I, as a kid, hated Resident Evil 1 and 2. I hated them. I did not like the camera, and I did not like the tank controls. 4 kind of fixed that. I played the Wii version, though, so that's kind of cheating, but so what? 6 came along, and that game didn't know. I don't know. They trying to went in a different direction, but the controls are really good. And I always thought, what if they made it like a Resident Evil game with the atmosphere of the older games, but the controls of 6? We got Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I love that game so much. And if that game would have came out like that when I was a kid, I probably would have like played the older ones. But that's why I'm also hoping for a Code Veronica remake, and they do better than they did with 3 remake, because that one wasn't the best. I don't know how we went from 2 to that, but we did. And then Hatsune Miku Future Tone is definitely another one for me. Because until I played this game, I've never heard Vocaloid music or none of that a day in my life. One of the things that I like about playing a lot of music games is if they're fun to play and you've never heard the music before, it's enjoying gameplay and discovering new music. And that's one of like the best things ever to me. So I'm just going, and this game had like 200 something songs on it. So I'm just going through it and I'm like, okay, this is actually a whole lot of fun. Unfortunately, it's only on PlayStation 4. Well, it's on PlayStation 4. They released a Switch version that has like half the songs. That's why I want them to put it on PC. Sega, please. Five Nights at Freddy's VR. I mentioned that I think like a few weeks ago. VR is definitely, for me, was just a breath of fresh air. It was just something that was new for me, and that game was the only game I ever played that like legit scares me a lot. I've found the gameplay of the original games still fun until you get to later on where the game just becomes RNG. But when you have it to where you're just in there and you have good headphones and the atmosphere and the sounds and everything, it really feels like you're in there. And that's why I love VR so much. It's like it's not really me having to imagine it. It really feels like I'm in this room. And it's like that game was just really what it is I wanted. Another one for me would have to be Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. The online is not great in that game, but what that game represents is just so amazing to me. I've been playing video games since I was like 3 years old. So, oh God, how many years ago was that? Almost 30 years ago. Getting old. And to see a game, to have so many characters from games that's been just out over the years and even newer ones is amazing. And you have the sound, you have the music to the game, some of them redone, and it just really feels like it is a celebration of video games now, not just Nintendo, but just video games in general. And as a person who grew up with these, this is no way for me to hate these games. And with Ultimate, they found a very good way to make it competitive for people who want to do that, while keeping it casual for people who don't want to get, competitive in that. And I think that's a very good balance. Sakurai definitely needs to take a break after this one, though.
He really does.
He really does. Like I'm surprised he hasn't yet. It's an amazing game. Just what it represents. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? There's way too many games.
Right. I completely like forgot about the Switch side of things, because it's like, for me it's like, oh, the Switch is still going. Like, I don't think of the Switch as like a generation thing. They're just in their corner doing their own thing. But you're totally right. Like with the direction where they went with Pokemon Sword and Shield, it's not the direction that people were necessarily expecting them to go to. But I do think that, like Final Fantasy 15, there's a potential there of like, okay, they're listening, they're trying, but there's still more that can be done with the series. I agree with you fully on Smash Bros. Ultimate, because I kind of wish more games celebrated their legacy in that way. Sometimes it feels like things are either put together or they just have like some of the characters that they think are fan favorites. But the idea of like taking every single character that's ever been in the game before and putting it into a game and be like, hey, any of you who have missed some of the games throughout the years, this is for you. And to me, I only got to play the first one, I was like, oh, cool. I get to kind of catch up in my own way. And it's different. It almost feels like the definitive version, even though I know some Smash enthusiasts are going to disagree with me, surely, because there's always enthusiasts for every single game that came out, and they're like, no, this is the best one. But I agree with that fully. I'm excited for kind of more of the services that kind of spawned within this generation, kind of like Games Pass and stuff like that, because there is so much potential there, and it's so consumer friendly that I'm really hoping that those services take us to like another level with the new generation and make it like even more accessible, make it, especially with like cross-platform or cross-save and stuff like that. I really like some of the things that were done with like Rocket League. Was like they were basically pioneers for like a game that was huge on PS4 because they basically had like a huge promotional thing with PS Plus. And then they were like, but we want to be crossplay. And they were one of the first games that were fully crossplay, like with PS4 and every single platform. Back when PS4 was still giving people a lot of issues, like trying to do crossplay. So hopefully that's going to be a thing moving forward, because gamers really need to get over that rivalry kind of attitude. Like, we should be on each other's throats because we have different hardwares. And because we want to play games with a controller that we're used to, and just things like that. Like, it's so silly to me, and I hope that kind of gets squashed over as companies try to get a little bit more friendly with each other. I like a little bit of friendly competition, but I don't like the rivalries of it all, and the people to be like yelling at each other over like who's doing best and who won and whatever. It's like, everyone wins. All of them are winning, girl. Have you seen how much money they have? All of them are winning.
Yeah, I mean, rivalry between the companies are fine, but people online, and this is why I said before, like, I sometimes don't like talking about consoles online because it gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
They act like it is a fight to the death. Like, they are trying to defend, like, Sony, Microsoft, as if you say one thing and it's like, all right, time to whip out the sword. It's like, what did you say? I'm like, it's not that serious. Calm down. And there's good and bad things about each one, and everyone has their preferences, but it's like people just turn it really, I guess you could, I don't say this word often, but I guess toxic. It just becomes like, it's not fun to talk about online with people sometimes, because they just make it into like, you have to like this one, and if you don't like this one, you know, then there's something wrong with you. Like, they don't understand. Like, personally, if I didn't have a PC, I would prefer to get an Xbox Series X. But I get why people will still prefer PlayStation, and I get where it is they come from. Each one does something different. And that's something that I feel consoles need to be doing more of, is something different, not the same thing. It's like, all right, we got a console and just the games. I think Sony definitely does better in the exclusives department, but Microsoft does, in my opinion, better than services. And depending on who you are, that just might be better for you. And for someone else, it could be different. It is not really a need for us to be at each other's throats like that, because nothing comes out of it. And they're not doing it. So it's like, everyone just, chill out and play some video games.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of the moral of this discussion, is not really for... I like that it's more of a celebration of like, yeah, the stuff that we've been enjoying over the past few years, rather than like, oh, PS4 was better than Xbox during the last few years. Like, I don't like how, first of all, how do you like, I guess I was going to say, how do you quantify that? I guess you could by like sales, who sold the most. But it's really like, people get consoles and they get hardware, and everyone has different reasons for everything. Like, for me, if I had all the budget in the world, I would probably get both, and I would get, the exclusives for each and whatever. But that's just kind of not the reality. And the reality is that Xbox is providing better services. So for me, it's not even like if I were to get the Series S, it's purely because of how cheap it is, and how it would be a little bit of an upgrade for me as a short-term kind of solution, as like a content creator who wants to kind of be up to par with what's going on. And that's completely valid. And it's also valid to do everything on PC and play the game in the best resolution and best graphical setting possible. It's also valid if you do on PS4 because you like their exclusives and because you're used to their brand and you like what they do and what they stand for, whatever it might be. And it's also valid if you are on the Switch side of things. You know, maybe you don't care much about the performance or about how the games necessarily look, and you're looking for different games and you're looking for different outcomes, or you want to play your games on the go. Not that you should be going anywhere, but you know what I mean. But yeah, any closing thoughts on this current generation, Chalora?
I don't know who's making the joysticks, but they're doing a shit job.
Get rid of the drift, y'all.
Get rid of the drift. I can't with this shit. Like, you've been making consoles perfectly fine for over 20 years, over 30 years, and you're telling me now you can't make them right anymore? I don't think so.
Right.
Not buying it. Fire them. Get back the old person. I think that I don't know. I'm tired of seeing Skyrim. We can't just remake Skyrim like a million times over what? It's been like when did Skyrim come out? Like 2010?
Oh, I don't even know.
Came
But
out
the ports
2011.
need to calm down.
2011. It's been 9 years of Skyrim, and they're just like, here, have another one, have another one, have another one, and it's like, I don't want it. Can we remake some other games? And because like I don't know, it wasn't a real remake; it was just a port or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would they put it on everything, and they would re-release it in like the weirdest way. I don't know. I'm tired of that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I would love to see some really good remakes. I think that there's a lot of games that don't need like full remakes the way that they did with Final Fantasy VII. I think that a lot of games just need like a graphics update.
Yeah.
Just remake the graphics and leave everything else alone. A lot of people are like old like me, and that's all I need.
I just need the game to look better. It's fine.
I just want it to be. I want to see. I think a lot of us want to see our pixelated fantasy turn into like a movie, and I don't know, for old fart like me, like that means a lot to be able to see it in high definition, if that makes sense. Like,
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy 9, if they left all the characters the same that they like, if you had the entire game the way that they looked in the cinematics,
Ooh.
I'd be so pleased. I'd be over the moon. I'd just be like, this is cool. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know how long I would spend on YouTube when I first got access to a computer. I was like, I'm just going to watch the movie over and over and over again. Like, and analyze all the little details and look how pretty they are and blah, blah, blah. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I think that would mean a lot to a lot of people versus just, I don't know, cheap remakes to make money.
Yeah. I think what they did with Crash was a really shining example, and Spyro were like two really shining examples of like the gameplay was fine as it is. We just need like graphics to look like the game got released now. And I think that's like a huge thing, like because now I play games, and even if they're not like the best, sometimes gameplay wise, unfortunately, like my example is like Final Fantasy 15. Like for the cutscenes and stuff like that, sometimes you were like, wow, like I'm playing the game. Like the game looks like the cutscenes in the old games looked, but like now it's like the gameplay is like that. So, and like with Ratchet and Clank, for example, that was also a thing, and how seamless a lot of the cutscenes are from like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be playing the game now, because like sometimes it's so seamless. And I would love that, like for the old Final Fantasy games, for them to just look the way that they looked in the cutscenes. Like hell yeah, please. Um, yeah, definitely the ports need to stop. Like I like that for now it seems as though like, oh yeah, the consoles are backwards compatible, or like you just get a free upgrade for most of the cases. So it's like, okay, thank God, cuz from PS3 to PS4 it was like, "Hey, want to buy the game again?" But it's like remastered for PS4. Like, no. But I still did with Kingdom Hearts.
I hated that so much because that
I
was
don't
also the year I
understand
built.
why are we go ahead.
Okay, I said that was the year I actually built my first PC, so I was getting a lot of the games on there. And then when they just started like just re-releasing them, and a lot of the times it wasn't like that much done. It was literally just going from maybe like medium to high, and we're
Yeah.
gonna sell it at full price. I'm like, why? Like I'd rather it be. I mean, I guess it's good for people who may have missed out, but like the beginning of the generation, it was just done back to back to
Yeah.
back.
It was too much. It really was. Like no. I remember they released Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2, I think on PS3 if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, I'm just going to play it on PS4. Like I'm not. And they did the same with like Kingdom Hearts. Like with Kingdom Hearts they did 1.5 and then they did 2.5, and I was like, I got 1.5 and I was like, by the time 2.5 came out, it was like close to PS4. So I was like, I'm just gonna get it on PS4. Like, what's the point of me getting this? And they're gonna try to get me again for PS4, and like, no, I'm just not gonna do it. And it's so silly how they did that, and they got away with it. Um, so hopefully that's gonna stop moving forward, please. Please and thank you. Um, yeah, what are some things that y'all are looking forward to for the next gen? Like things that you may want to see. Chalora kind of already got into it of like better remakes and stuff like that. Yeah, what do you think for PS5, Xbox Series S and X? It's so annoying having to say it like that. Yeah, what would be some things that you would like expect or want to see?
Um, I would say, of course, I want to see. Um, I wanted for the option for like how they're doing it, kind of like with the resolution and frame rate, so for that to continue to be a thing. Because I am a person that prefers to play at like higher frame rates than higher resolutions. So please just make that a thing across the board, please, if possible. Um, I am looking forward to the backwards compatibility. They seem to have done pretty well in that for last generation, which is that'll probably help with the remasters and all that. But they've done like very good for like the last generation too, where some of them are just going to be enhanced. They'll go back to them. Some of them are going to be achieving more of their target frame rates. So as a person who sometimes like to go back and play a few of those, that's also something I do like. Um, for in terms of games, I don't know. I guess I just want to see. I mean, I guess I don't want them to be afraid to take, risks and not just be like, okay, here's another sequel. I would like to definitely see some more IPs to things as
Yeah.
well. Playing sequels are always good, but it's always nice to see, fresh new characters, come in and new developers coming in and bringing out new games as well. So, but that's mostly what I would want. I think so far, it's I think at least in terms of like hardware, they're doing pretty good. So I'm more interested in this current generation. I mean, um, the new generation coming up.
Oh
And
no.
when this one started, I wasn't very impressed as much. But with the upcoming one, I like what I'm seeing out of both Microsoft and Sony. So it'll be interesting to see how things turn out.
Yeah, so far from what we've seen from like people who have gotten the consoles early, and there's like the side by sides now of like lesser loading times and better performance and all that stuff. I think PC gaming is still gonna be like where you're gonna get the best performance and best graphical, like when it comes to like the visuals of it all. But I do think that with this new generation, I think it's closing the gap a little bit. Like I'm not saying they're doing it all the way, but I think we're getting to a place where unless you're someone who has like the latest graphics cards and the latest like hardware on PC, I feel like you're gonna be getting similar experiences. I think with previous generations, I feel like it was very telling, like how dramatic of a difference it was in certain games, especially. And I kind of like that. Like we're going forward in a direction where it's like basically the newer consoles look like PC towers, to be honest. So I'm like, we're getting closer and closer to like everyone being on a similar level, I guess, when it comes to that. I want Nintendo to step it up a little bit because I want them to. I really believe in their games, and I would really love for them to believe in themselves a little bit when it comes to that. I feel like they're just like relying on being the unique person on the side, but it's like, no, you actually have a shot at like properly competing with these people. Like step it up a little bit and like actually be on that, like, you know, having the 4K capabilities and actually letting your developers make games that are on par graphically and performance wise with the new generation. Because if they don't, they're gonna look really, really bad now, because like the new generation is like it's looking like it's gonna be more impressive, and I feel like the difference is gonna be way more dramatic from you picking up your Switch to you picking up your PS5 or Xbox Series X. So they really need to step it up a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit, because we love their games. They just, you know, could look better.
Ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah. Any other things that we would love to see from the upcoming generation of consoles and gaming moving forward?
I'd love to see Square Enix and Nintendo hash it out, because there's a lot of games that they made with each other that like the rights, because it was Square Soft.
Oh.
Like Mario RPG. Like, can somebody just quash that? And like, because I think every game that they made together was like huge. And I know I've been saying that a lot today, like these older games, but like, I don't know, I'm so tired of oh, we're gonna remake a game that we made 5 years ago. Like, ugh.
Sometimes not even remake. Sometimes it's like, let's just port it, and it's like it has the same resolution. Yeah, it's like the same gameplay.
You made this 5 years ago. Like, it doesn't look any different.
Yeah.
Like I could play that right now, you know?
Yeah.
I can understand for people who didn't play it and don't like maybe this is their first console or whatever, but like literally, like realistically, how many people are new to consoles at all?
Yeah.
I don't know, or like haven't used an emulator or have a computer or watched it or something.
Yeah. And also, wouldn't you want the person to get an optimal gameplay experience? Because like with Crash, for example, the first game had some flaws with the gameplay, but they fixed that for the remake. So like, why don't you do that for Mario 64 or other games?
Well, like Mario RPG.
Yeah.
Is what I meant. Or like what's it called? Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. Things like that.
Yeah.
Because they're just like lost forever and they'll never be remade. And it's like, I don't know, someone take the initiative, just be like, sorry girl, let's remake this. Like no hard feelings, and then get it done. Like I don't know.
Yeah, Chrono
But
Trigger
that's what I would like.
is like sitting basically as a port on mobile and PC right now, and it's like, oh, like I know that game is like so adored by so many. It's like maybe you could have done more with it.
Well, like even imagining, like I never played Chrono Trigger growing up. I had played Chrono Cross. And Chrono Cross had great, amazing graphics for its time, at least I think. It was a beautiful game. And the music was incredible too. And so when I had heard of Chrono Trigger, I was like, oh, like that was before this game. So let me play it. And it's really long, so I never finished
Yeah.
it. But I do think that even if Chrono Trigger had the same graphics as Chrono Cross, like, oh my gosh, like people who, people like me who are skeptical to play it wouldn't be skeptical. They'd just be like, oh, that looks great. That's a beautiful game. They have a beautiful world that they're in as well. So I think just overall, like both games would be incredibly visually stunning. Um, but like I get concerned when like I don't know. I wasn't impressed. I mean, I guess I should give it more of a chance by actually like watching a full playthrough. But I get scared when they do things like they did with Final Fantasy VII remake. Like it's not the same game at all.
Right.
They took it and they were like, let's add these characters and give them bigger parts, and let's put this in there, and let's put some mediocre voice acting, and let's put,
Ooh.
like I don't know. Like and for me, just also as like a younger person back in the day, first playing those games, like that's how I learned to read. Like if you just spoil me with voice acting and it's not even that good, it's like don't bother. It's just a waste of money. So,
Yeah.
let me learn how to read.
Alternatively, you could put on the Japanese voices and you could just like read the subtitles.
True.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's a good.
Very true.
I found that to be a good solution because I agree with you. It's like sometimes the voice acting is a bit distracting, or sometimes it isn't exactly what you pictured for that character. Especially with like Final Fantasy VII, I haven't really felt that personally, but because I also just experienced the original recently, so it's I didn't really grow up with it. But for Final Fantasy VIII, for example, if they were to remake it and if it was like dramatically different, and if neither of the characters sounded like I thought they would, and if if they changed the story in ways that I didn't agree with, I would be like, ooh, I don't know about that. And for me, like, and I feel like for a lot of foreigners or people with outside of the US, like that's how we learned a lot of the times how to speak English, or how to like learn certain words, because I would go to the dictionary and I would be like, what does that mean? What is that item? And I would be like, oh, it's a necklace, got it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like for a lot of gamers out there, that's how like we learned English, or how we got into that too. And it was a motivation for me in English class, like I need to get better at it so that I can understand the games that I want to play. So that was a really good thing for me. But yeah, that's a tip that I usually have. Like if the voice acting is too distracting for you, just turn on English subtitles and put it on Japanese, because nowadays they're releasing the Japanese voices, and I'm like, yes. I love when they do that. But yes, those were some of our thoughts for this generation. Let us know, y'all. We're on YouTube and we are on Twitter at JustGamingTingz. We're on Twitch as well. So let us know your thoughts on the current generation and things that you would like to see for the upcoming generation. Because surely, I think we shouldn't have to say this, but like obviously there's only 3 of us. And even if it was 5 of us for a normal podcast episode, each of us would only have our own perspectives, and it's normal that we wouldn't cover every single game that came out in your favorite console or whatever it might be. So definitely share it with us, because this can be more of a community thing, and we can all get to know a little bit of each other's experiences with the consoles. And maybe even a game that maybe I didn't like, you can give me a perspective of like, hey, I liked it because of this and that and that, and maybe I'll give it another chance, or whatever it might be. Yeah, lots of games. I feel like even like there's so many more games that are coming out these days. Like I read something that was like hundreds or like thousands of games come out like every week on Steam and stuff like that. So it's like, how can we keep track of all of it these days? But we don't. Yeah. That's just, yeah, we don't, y'all. We can't. Yeah, but before we go, what can people expect on your own content and stuff like that in the next few weeks? Where can people find you? All that fun stuff. We can start with Chalora.
You can find me on twitch.tv/Chalora, although I'm super inconsistent right now. I'm just working on
Same.
a newsletter. I'm working on a super secret project that you can find if you go to you go on Twitter and you go to the Team Stream Queens Twitter page and you look at the pinned tweet. There's a little something I'm working on. Maybe a major something. Maybe a pretty big something. And just lots more drag stuff in the future.
Yes, so please go follow Chalora. What about you, Koga?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Koga_Jangles. I'm actually going to be streaming tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock, 10 Central Time, because
Ta-da.
oh my God, we're going to be playing some Sega Saturn games.
Yes.
I grew up with a Sega Saturn, but I missed out on a lot because also we didn't get a lot of stuff came out in Japan that we just didn't get. So I'm not sure if I'm going to turn this into a weekly thing. We'll see. But tomorrow I'm going to be running through just a few of them and see how it goes from there.
Yes. You can find me at Project Ruby on Twitter, on Twitch, and I've been playing Resident Evil 2. I'm basically about to finish it. I'm playing as Claire right now, and I'm basically getting to the end, so that's exciting. I played Gone Home last week as well, and it was really, really nice. So yeah, just expect variety. I got Final Fantasy VII Remake on sale recently, so that's going to be happening as well. A big thing happening, though, as well, is on Tuesday, November 10th, I'm actually going to be participating in a collaboration between Queer Black Excellence and Rainbow Arcade, and they have a summit coming up, and I'm going to be in a panel talking about etiquette on LGBTQIA plus spaces. So very exciting. It's going to be on the front page of on Twitch under the Rainbow Arcade Twitch channel. So super excited to chat about some LGBTQIA plus things on there. And yeah, definitely support as well Spin Blend and GM, because both of them are also, you're going to find links to their channels on our descriptions everywhere, so please do support them. They're amazing, and we hope to chat with them next week. Hopefully all of us will be together next week. Thank you, everybody. We're everywhere, Just Gaming Tingz. Look us up on Spotify and all the amazing platforms on where you can listen to podcasts. And we'll see you next Saturday. So stay safe, stay wonderful, and be kind to one another, everybody. And have fun with your games. Bye.
Bye.